Stay fly, stay fly.
Now is the time to do it. Right now. The Democrats have been playing games with this. This is an opportunity for the Republican Party, even. A big opportunity for them. Because in the 1960s, the Lyndon B. Johnson, the deal that he made with Martin Luther King Jr., that took the black voters away from the Republican Party and brought them over to the Democrat Party.
You're listening to The Fly Guy Show. They do everything on the fly and in such a fly manner. Stay fly, stay fly, stay fly.
After all that party. The views expressed by the guests are only the views of the guests, unless we say we agree, unless explicitly stated.
Hey, this is Ernie Thomas here on the Bold School Podcast. You're listening to Seko Varner's Fly Guy Podcast. Support, like, subscribe, and share. He's saying some good things. Share it. Don't keep it to yourself.
Now you guys are located where about? Where you
We're located in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and we're live right now all over Facebook. Well, not all over. We're on 3 Facebook channels and we're on 2 YouTube channels. And it's your man Seko Varner with the Fly Guy Show, the home of intelligent, conscious, melanated conversations to help us improve our collective situation. I have the hype, the knowledgeable, the intelligent, the prophetic T. West from Afrisynergy News. How you doing, good brother?
Hey, my dear brother. It's good to be on your program. Thanks a million for your invite. I just got through yesterday listening to you interview my brother, what was his name?
Oh, you talking about Brother Keedy?
Yeah. Last time I saw him was several years ago. We were in California at an event, and that was my first time we actually met face to face. Was there in Southern California. So yeah, that was a good program though. That was a good program.
Right, yeah. Well, you two brothers are definitely of the same cloth. So Afrisynergy, tell me about how that came about. What does it mean? Does it have a definite direction? Is it a movement? Talk to me about Afrisynergy.
Well, Afrisynergy is about reporting the news, the truth. When you want the real news, the real truth about geopolitics, about domestic politics, about even domestic social matters right here in the United States of America, well, you tune into Afrisynergy News. Now, the name Afrisynergy, Afri is actually, Afri, like Africa, and then synergy is when you synergize things, when you mix things up and you bring things together. Okay, so the synergy. So I'm also a Pan-Africanist as well. Okay, I am for home first, right here first. You make it hot right here, and then you spread out. You spread out elsewhere into Africa and other areas of the diaspora. So that's a little bit about Afrisynergy News. We are about reporting the facts, the truth. That's what we're about. Real news, real facts. So we report on all of that. What mainstream media, most of what they will not report to you or give to you in just little tidbits, we bring it to you. And sometimes it's multiple times during the day, several times during the week. We bring it all times and hours of the day and night. We bring it. So that's a little bit of news. Yeah.
Hey, you definitely bring it. You just had a video where you went back to 2015 and talked about how you predicted with analytics and by information on President Trump's winning. You have a number of videos that shows how damaging Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and some of the other Democrat candidates are. I'm just blown away by your content, man. Definitely blown away by your content. I was kind of surprised to find out that you voted for Trump. Would you consider yourself a Trump supporter?
Oh, yeah. I support Trump with a number of things. Some things I do not support him on. Some of his foreign policy things pertaining to Israel, that whole Iran situation. I don't support that. But there are other parts of his foreign policy that I do support, about bringing the troops, getting the troops out of Iraq, getting the troops, those who are in Syria, getting them out of there. I support those things. I support the fact that Trump when he was running and campaigning for president, that he stated that the United States should not be involved in regime changes and nation building and wasting trillions of dollars on these foreign wars, that America should return its investment into the domestic economy to improve the American citizens, to improve the infrastructure right here in the United States of America, instead of wasting so many trillions of dollars, $7 trillion on doggone wars. You know, wars that George W. Bush and Dick Cheney started, that Obama started in Libya, in Syria, in Ukraine. That was all under Obama and Biden. Okay, so all of that affects your domestic situation here. It affects you, whether you're living in Brooklyn and New York or the Bronx or wherever in New York, whether you're living all the way on the West Coast somewhere, maybe in Seattle, Washington, or anywhere in between in Kansas City, Missouri, or Memphis, Tennessee. All of that affects your domestic well-being when you have a military-industrial complex that is all about pushing war. That's a waste of money, all right? So I support Trump's call for bringing the troops home. I totally support that. Even though he gets a lot of pushback from Democrats and Republicans on that, I support that. And I think if more of our voices were being heard on that, I think that we would see greater change towards that endeavor. So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's kind of interesting because you've been pushing the idea that we, capital W, capital E, need to request or push or demand that President Trump does an executive order on reparations. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Let me give you an example first, because oftentimes when you see certain precedent, some things that you can sort of use as a blueprint, then if it turned out good, then you probably want to duplicate that in another area. And here's the example.
Right.
When Trump became president, you had Omarosa. Omarosa was there initially and all, and there was talk about with black colleges and universities and all. So Omarosa's gone, but the talk about historically black colleges and universities funding them, okay, continued. And that's what's important. I'm not Omarosa, but what the agenda was. The agenda was HBCUs, okay, and funding. So somebody stayed in Trump's ear, okay? They got in his ear and says, hey, look, why don't you, what about an executive order for monies for HBCUs? So Trump signed an executive order for HBCUs. After he did that, then you saw the Democrats over there in the House and all. It's like, oh boy, whoa, wait a minute here now. He's really taking some thunder here now with this. Okay, so what happened in the House? They voted to permanently fund HBCUs. But what stimulated that? What lit that spark? It was Trump's executive order. Okay, now let's go to reparations.
Okay.
All right, so with reparations, you had the HR 40 that's been sitting in a desk in a committee for over 30 years that John Conyers around about 1989 put forward. It's been sitting for decades.
Right.
The movement. So how do you move that forward? One of the quickest way to move that forward would be for African Americans to say, all right, those who have the ear of President Trump, for them to suggest to Mr. Trump that, hey, look, if you would sponsor in an executive order a reparations, okay, that would get the ball started. It would force the Democrats in the House to say, whoa, wait a minute here now. You see what Trump just did? It would force the same sort of action that happened with the HBCUs, okay? It would force the House to produce. It would bring that legislation out of committee and onto the floor for a vote. We don't need any more studies. We've got all the studies we need. All we need to do is just provide those studies to Congress, and then they vote on it, okay? So,
right,
an executive order would be a case where Trump is using his bully pulpit to move things along that has been sitting in limbo. Obama used executive orders. He used it with DACA. Okay?
Right.
With DACA. Now, the Hispanics, they were happy about that because Congress,
absolutely,
they weren't moving with any kind of real immigration legislation. But when Obama did his executive order with DACA, well, that made a lot of them happy. So we're asking for an executive order from Donald Trump. Imagine. And our goal is to actually, for Trump to do that before the November elections. If Trump did that before the November elections, Trump would go down in history.
It would be a wrap. It would be a wrap. But it would be good for us. It would be good for us more so than somebody's party. Or, that's one of the things that I'm pushing right now, that the Democrats cannot win without us. And the Republicans might not win without us. And I've learned that from you and, for some of the others as well.
Yeah.
Wow. So how do we affect an executive order from President Trump? What would be the steps? How do we make that happen?
Well, the steps are this. Trump is always saying, African Americans, come on, let's talk. Come on, let's talk. And you see young and some middle-aged and some older African Americans at the White House, and they be talking with Trump. You see Daryl Scott, others, okay? And some of the people who are listening, you probably know Daryl Scott, or you know someone who is close to Daryl Scott, or you know someone who go to the White House now and then who are black. And they don't even have to be black sometimes, okay? You got other people who will also promote this agenda who are not black. Okay, now, but when you have someone who have the ear of the president, what you want to do is you want to work with that individual so that individual will work with the president and put it in his ear. Look, Mr. President, do you want to win this big? And do you want to go down in history as being the greatest president on behalf of African Americans? The way to do that is with an executive order for reparations. Now, an executive order for reparations would just be a small amount, okay? And we don't even want to even discuss and finagle over the amount, because it's not about the amount with an executive order. It is about that particular action. Because what that will do, as I said earlier, that will force action in Congress. The Republicans would jump all over it because Trump is behind it. The Republicans were not all on board with this whole illegal immigration situation until Trump started pushing and promoting it. Then Mitch McConnell and the rest of them jumped on board with it. Okay? So they were rolling right along pretty much with the Democrats with this whole illegal immigration thing. Until Trump said, oh, no. In my administration, my platform, I am not going to tolerate this open borders sort of nonsense. So when you have an executive order like this, that sitting president would go down in history with African Americans as, hey, look, you the real deal. You really got it done. You really brought it through. Now, this was something that Obama would never do. He was scared. He would never have done it. Okay? But with Trump, fortunately, Trump has a backbone. Okay? He's stubborn enough and he has such an ego enough that he would actually do something like this. So this is the right person at the right time for demanding that and requesting that reparations be started through an executive order. Okay? So that's my vision for that. That's my vision for it. And we can do this, but what we have to do, those of us who know people who have access to the White House, we have to put that in writing, very short, and submit it to the White House. And each individual out here, individuals out here can write letters to the White House promoting an executive order for reparations. You have Twitter. Trump's out there on Twitter all the time. In your Twitter, and your tweets and all, you always talk about an executive order for reparations. You put it out there. Saturate the media with that.
Okay.
That's what we do.
Now, will our senators and Congress people have any impact on this? Do we need to contact our senators and our congressmen and women and get them to do anything as well? I know that not only the presidential elections will happen in 2020, but we'll have numerous congressional races and senatorial races as well. So do we impact them as well? What's good with that?
Oh, yes. Good point. Yes. Certainly. That African American what you can do is you can also use it for your local Congress people, your national Congress people. You use it at every level. You push it and you promote it. You saturate the entire political environment with it. Now is the time to do it. Right now. The Democrats have been playing games with this. This is an opportunity for the Republican Party, even. A big opportunity for them. Because in the 1960s, the Lyndon B. Johnson, the deal that he made with Martin Luther King Jr., that took the black voters away from the Republican Party and brought them over to the Democrat Party. That was so profound that Lyndon B. Johnson said, I'll have these niggers voting Democrat for the next 100 years.
Yo, you said that, and that blew my mind and blew my wife's mind when we took that into context, that our Republican hero, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., met with Lyndon B. Johnson, a Democrat, and now this is kind of the result of it, that we haven't really gotten anything since the 1964 legislation, from what you're saying.
That's right. 1964, 1965, you had the Immigration Naturalization Act, that bill that passed. And then you started seeing, from that point on, you started seeing millions upon millions of primarily Hispanics coming into this country. And they actually offset African Americans socioeconomically. They did that in California and other states across this country. They started doing that. So, in fact, I had a chart. I've shown this chart for more than a year now, where you see over the same time frame, you see black males being incarcerated at the same graphical trajectory as young Hispanic males entering into the United States, replacing them in the job workforce. That's why you continually see the wealth gap of African Americans either remain the same comparative to white people or dipping lower and lower in America. So now is the time. We have a case for it, but we have to push it. We have to promote it. We have to saturate the entire political environment with it, whether they're Democrats, whether they're Republicans. This is an opportunity for the Republicans because in the coming years, and this is very soon, the Republicans are going to be losing more and more to Democrats if the Republicans do not start capturing a significant number of the black voters.
Ashe. I've been saying on Twitter, on Facebook, and in the YouTube talks, Get on Code with Seko Varner, that once again, the Democrats will lose without us. The Republicans might lose without us. It's our vote that makes all the difference. I want to say, hey, we got Queen Shay All Day who's joined us. Now, Shay and I can't have our mics at the same time. It gets an echo. But Queen Shay All Day, say a few words. We got Brother T West in the house.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. And it sounds like I missed a lot of really interesting stuff as I was coming in. So I'm absorbing and listening to what I came in on so far.
All right, Shay. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
All right, so then, Brother T. West, man, you have the floor. You have the information. You have the movement as well. You mentioned something about your visual, your graph that shows that as Hispanic males, young Hispanic or Latino males came into our country, then we had more and more incarceration with our foundational Black, ADOS, whatever term you want to use, African American, melanated, Moorish, indigenous, whatever term you want to use. You're saying as they came in, our Hispanic and Latino brothers and sisters came in, we ended up going to jail. Can you expound a little more on that, brother?
Well, yeah. Over 25% of Black males over that period of time, let's say going all the way back to 1990 and coming forward for 20 years to 2010 or 2018, 30 years for that matter. Over 25% of them, if they did not graduate from high school and with a diploma, they ended up in prison. So you had a huge number of Black males who were being incarcerated during more than a 20-year period. Now, those were persons who would normally at least take menial jobs, low-skilled jobs. But they were going to prison. So, to replace them, the government was bringing in, U.S. government was allowing millions of illegal immigrants to come into the United States, and they were taking those menial jobs, painting jobs, carpentry jobs. They were taking those jobs and other jobs that normally those young Black men would have. Okay? So, and at the same time, what you saw more and greater struggles with more and more Black families here in the United States because, number one, you had a situation where these Black males, in increasing numbers, they weren't there. They were in prison. So the chart that I showed at that time, what you see in that chart, you see the same thing for the same period of time. And no one can say, well, that's just an anomaly. No, it's not an anomaly because that's trending over a 20-plus year time frame. And you see the trajectory on both charts were the same. And then when they finally leveled off at virtually the same time. Wow. Okay? And no one has brought that out. No one has ever said anything about that. Ever. And part of the reason is because you have lots of African Americans, lots of Blacks, who are saying, well, these Hispanics, they're our brothers and sisters, and we standing with them, the Browns and the Blacks, we standing together, we're doing this, we're doing that. But for the most part, they are eating your doggone cake. As you're doing this, they're doing this. It's just that the laws of motion, EMC square. Okay? That direction creates opposite force in the opposite direction. It moves you forward as it's being pushed out of the back. You're being pushed out of the back while something else is moving forward. Okay? So this is beyond, and you mentioned it in the early part of the program, that's right. I don't believe in the mythical white supremacy. I don't see white people as being supreme. I've never seen white people as being supreme. I don't see them as being dominant. I've never seen them as being dominant. You have the Moors who ruled in Europe, in Western Europe, many parts of Western Europe, for almost 800 years.
Salute Moors.
Okay, almost 800 years. So, and that only ended around about, 14th century was when it ended. And not long thereafter, that's when you started seeing the massive enslavement of our people into the Western Hemisphere. So when we look at that chart where you see that trend of Black men in particular being incarcerated, while at the same time you had all of these Hispanic males, young males, being shipped into this country to replace them. So that's why today in California, state of California, you got a negative 10% decrease in blacks leaving California. But now today, 52% of the population of California is Hispanic today. It's their majority. Therefore, they can demand a sanctuary city. They can demand a sanctuary state. But imagine black people. Imagine for a moment. For almost 39%, almost 40% of African Americans still reside in the southeastern region of the United States. And that's where Joe Biden started kicking Bernie Sanders' butt at, because you got a lot of blacks in that area, okay? But imagine this. Imagine all of you who were your parents and your grandparents, when they left the South, went to California, went northeast, went to other areas of the country, fleeing Jim Crow, fleeing sharecropping, fleeing all of those things. But imagine if the generations today, imagine if you migrated back to the southeastern region of the United States and you made a majority in the region. You established a majority in the region. The Hispanics established a majority in California. Therefore, they changed the laws and ordinances of California to suit them. They changed the laws to mimic or look like what they were accustomed to in Mexico. In Mexico, men can marry little girls who are 13 years of age. So therefore, they're changing laws in California to try to match what they knew about and had benefits of in California. All right? So, black people, where there is no vision, the people perish. You're not going to hear what I'm saying from a Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, or anybody else. You're not going to hear what I'm saying. Okay? This is new. Okay? This is the vision. This is the vision for today and going forward. You establish your black Mecca in the southeastern region of the United States. You do that by getting the numbers, getting those numbers up, moving back from those areas where Jim Crow, sharecropping, and all the ugly sisters of chattel slavery chased and ran your foreparents off to. Move on back to those areas. Establish your black Mecca. Establish that. You're not going to gain anything in California anymore.
What about Atlanta?
You will never have the numbers anymore in California. But go ahead, brother. Say.
What about Atlanta? Atlanta and Detroit are called black Meccas.
Yeah. Atlanta is a part of the southeastern region. Detroit is not a part of the southeastern region. Okay? Detroit is not a part of that. You had a lot of blacks who left the South. They went up to up there to the auto industry in Detroit to work in the manufacturing industry up there. But the parents, they did good. They retired. They got pensions and all. They did good. But those children who are still there now, they're not doing as well as their parents were doing there in Detroit anymore, because much of that industry was gutted. When in the 1980s, 1990s, you had all of those jobs. Remember Ross Perot talk about that sucking sound. Those jobs, factories going out of America, going to Mexico first, and then going over to Taiwan and to China. All those jobs were going out because at the same time, here in America, they were talking about, all in the media, they were talking about the browning of America. In other words, America is becoming a non-white nation. And white folks, white executives, white people were trying to get their wealth out of this country before you had attained a numerical majority in this country. That's what they were trying to do. So, but instead, what they also did, they used the Hispanics as a buffer zone between them and you. A
buffer zone?
A buffer zone, yes. Okay? In other words, if the Hispanics if you're struggling and trying to get the job over millions of illegal immigrants who are coming into the country, well, that takes your attention off of the guy up here who's holding most of the money. It takes your attention off of that. So they're a buffer zone. Okay? You got to fight through that before you can get to the one on the top. Okay? And the one on the top, as you see in that chart up there, that's in green. It's in green. It's more than at least 14 times higher than the wealth of black folks, white folks' wealth. Then you have Hispanics. Hispanics in America, their wealth is nearly twice that of African Americans in the United States. Nearly twice. So, African Americans, what do you have to lose? Trump's world. What do you have to lose? Okay? Trump's realistic. Trump knows that Jesse Jackson cannot give you a pot to piss in. He knows that Spike Lee can't do it either. He knows that Al Sharpton can't do it either. He knows that Jim Clyburn can't do it either. He knows that Nancy Pelosi can't do it either. They don't have the bully pulpit of the White House right now. Some say, T. West, Trump is a doggone racist. So what if he is? I'm not saying he is, but so what if he is? If that racist, if I can make a deal with that racist to get what my people want, then I'm going to make that deal with the racist, because that racist is also looking for something from me. He's looking for my vote. He's looking for the black vote. Okay? The Republican Party is also looking for the black vote. It's just that some people in the Republican Party, they just don't know it yet. Okay? But they need the black vote. They need it really, really bad. Okay? Because that gerrymandering, that is not going to work too much longer. It's not going to be too effective too much longer across this country.
Interesting. Brother T. West from Afrisynergy News is on with Seko Varner, DJ Seko Varner at Grandpa Crunk, and Queen Shay all day at 360 Citizens. And Brother T. West, your Twitter handle is what? It's at
WESTTHEA.
Okay. Queen Shay all day had the idea of talking about reparations. So Queen Shay, what says you?
Okay, so before we get into reparations, I have a couple of questions. So going back to the idea of a Black Mecca, Seko, I think we thought about it at the same time. Atlanta is a huge Black population. So with the Black Mecca, what happens from there?
Well, with the Black Mecca, what happens? The first thing that you want to do is you want to first map out what's important, what's most important for the group, for African Americans. That's the first thing that you want to do. And then you want to look at what is inhibiting those things that you have decided are most important to you. Next, you want to establish ordinances and laws that push aside those things that are inhibiting those things that you have determined are most important to you. Okay? Now, you've got some precedent. As I said earlier, when those Hispanics came in, legal and illegal, what they did, the children might have been legal, but the parents are still illegally here in America. They started working together and they started changing the laws and ordinances in California, in Baltimore, Atlanta. I think Atlanta is also a sanctuary city. Okay? So you got some Black folks up in there who aren't thinking too well in Atlanta. Okay? All right. So you establish your laws and regulations for your domain, for your municipal area, for your regional area. You establish those things. It's about the numbers. The numbers.
So I agree. I think that's something that's definitely needed and something that would make that change. Like, there are things that once you have the numbers, you start making changes. We've seen that over history in different groups in our own community. How do you get to that point, though? Because, so even looking at reparations, for example, when you talk about reparations, of course you're going to get pushback from white people. But when you talk about reparations, you get pushback from Black people too.
Sure.
And so with so many different streams of thought, some people, my take on it is a lot of people grow up in a culture, in the American culture, that pushes you to see things from what I like to call the colonizer mindset or the colonizer point of view, even no matter what race you are. And so when you hear things like reparations, Black people who have taken in these messages of Black people are lazy, Black people just want handouts, Black people just want free money. When you look at Black people who have attained higher levels of education, who might be doing fairly well for themselves, and they look at their lower income brethren and they say, well, if you just give people money, then they're not going to know what to do with it. And so how do we unify to even get the numbers, even if we have the population numbers, how do we get the unity numbers to actually make changes and have a unified voice?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, you do what we're doing right now. All right. Right now, you have the most powerful medium ever known in history. And that is the power of social media right now. It was so powerful that when Donald Trump won over Hillary Clinton, in spite of mainstream media believing and saying that that Hillary had it in the bag and that she was going to win, it was social media that primarily helped Donald Trump pull across the line. So much so that mainstream media, in an envious way, they started referring to social media as fake news. Okay? That's what they started doing. Because for the first time in history, it was social media. It was us out here who made the big, big difference. Okay. So that, first of all, will be the area where we start at. We start right there. And we're doing that right now. That's why I'm on your program, because we're doing that. We're building the framework for this. Okay. We're changing the hearts and minds of the people. Now, you're not going to hear this on MSNBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, Fox News. You're not going to hear it out there. You're not going to hear it on NPR. You won't hear it, okay? You only hear this out here in the biggest media now, which is social media. It's bigger than old mainstream media. Legacy media is bigger. This is bigger than that. So it starts here. It doesn't end here, but it starts here and it continues here. And when you start changing the hearts and minds of the people, then politicians start listening. They start looking, okay? When Tom Steyer, who was a Democrat candidate running for president, the billionaire, when he saw that, well, look, I'm not getting any traction saying this, but for South Carolina, heck, I need to talk about reparations. So he started talking about reparations. He started talking about what black people wanted to hear. And so what happened with him? Okay, he did win 11% of the vote in South Carolina because he tapped in to what black people more and more were talking about. Now, your other comment and question, you're going to always have some people who are going to be at odds with you. Always. Okay. Always. But your goal is always to win the hearts and minds of the people rather than they win the hearts and minds of the people. You have to outcompete them. You have to be better than them. That is the goal. We can do that. And we're doing it. We're doing it right now. Okay? So there's a lot of work involved with it. Lots of work. But we got to do that work, and we're doing that work. So those were very, very good questions. I don't know if I covered all of what you asked right there, Shay. If I didn't, go ahead and chime back in.
I think you did cover it. And one, I want to note that we have a comment about the fake news, that Trump and the GOP are the ones who started talking about fake news because they were saying things that he didn't like. Hillary did win the popular vote, but she did not win the electoral vote, which is the determining factor. But more so, I wanted to talk about, so one thing I saw Bug commented, he talked about the gentrification of Atlanta, something else we're seeing in DC as well, where the market and the housing, commerce are being controlled by corporations, by housing corporations, which tend to be either white or Middle Eastern a lot of times. So they're controlling who's living where, what gets built, what kind of things are showing up. So there's a challenge there. But I also see a challenge in, even when you say, okay, he talked about reparations. What does reparations look like? Is it the 40 acres and a mule in a place where most people can't have land? I live in a city where we're not even allowed to have chickens in our backyard. And the people, the citizens of this city, have been trying to even have chickens in our backyard. So what does reparations look like? And how do we push back when a lot of the spaces, even social media, so like Facebook has algorithms where certain things are, people have reported their posts being taken down if it discusses race too much, whether it's positive or negative. Whereas other things like the Nancy Pelosi doctored video, the deep fakes, are not being taken down, are being widely shared. So there looks like there's bias even in what social media shows, what we see in the reparations conversation. So I have two things. Let me sum it up. The first thing is, yes, social media is powerful, but we are not controlling social media, and the people that do control social media still have the power to decide what gets seen and shared, along with fake news, which is a real thing, misinformation, bots, trolls, all of that happens in social media to promote certain ideas. So all of that is going on in social media and with legacy media. And then when we are talking about reparations, what does that even mean?
Okay. All right. I'll start with social media first, and then I'll get to reparations and what that really means. Okay. Now, first of all, you mentioned gentrification. Gentrification. Now, Atlanta, Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. used to be called the Chocolate City at one time. It's not the Chocolate City anymore. Okay. Now, but that is mostly the fault of African Americans. Okay. Anytime African Americans will cape for other groups, especially immigrant and more specifically illegal immigrant groups, more than they cape for themselves, then bad results will be the result. Bad results will happen. Okay. Now, so in Atlanta, which I believe is a sanctuary city, I think Atlanta is a sanctuary city. And it shouldn't be a sanctuary city, but black folks, black politicians, not just politicians, because you got voters who have allowed that to happen there. Okay. When you allow these things to happen, little by little, more and more is taken away from you. All you got to do is look at South Central LA, Los Angeles, California. Look at some areas where it's already happened at, okay? And then you'll understand. So gentrification, anytime you have a huge wealth gap where white people have at least 14 times more wealth than black people, then it is far easier for them to control property, tax valuations, and other aspects, other trickology to get property away from blacks in urban areas primarily. It's easier for them to do things like that, which, by the way, it was property that through which white people acquired that huge wealth gap. Land grant acts, homestead acts, all of that, and then not to mention redlining, all that came even after the Homestead Act, land grant acts, all of that, okay? That's why we demand reparations. We're not requesting reparations. We're demanding reparations, okay? Because it is owed, okay? Now, when you look at Washington, D.C., I know Baltimore is a sanctuary city, and Washington, D.C. probably is too, okay? These are where you have a huge black population, but black folk are not in touch with the realities of what will move them forward collectively. They have tapped into the old traditional mainstream media's ideology. Okay? We, people of color. All right, I don't even use a doggone term, people of color. I don't use it. When I'm talking about us, I say black folks. I say African Americans. Okay? Not people of color. And you'll notice something else. Donald Trump never referred to, when he's talking about black people, he never referred to them as people of color. You'll never hear him talking about using that term, people of color. I've never heard him say it. He said African Americans. You see Bernie?
He also says the blacks.
Yes.
Like
Black.
So on the one hand, yes, he might not say people of color, but on the other hand, he does seem to kind of not see it as more of a people term as much as a category, the blacks.
Well, it is a category. It is. I'm happy. It's a category. The blacks. I'm the blacks. Hey, yeah. Oh, what else did Trump say? He said that slavery was barbaric. That slavery was savagery. Okay? He referred to those of your ancestors, my ancestors who were enslaved, as sacred souls. Sacred souls. You don't hear the normal politician, white politician saying things like that. You don't hear that. But Trump said that.
So do you feel like Trump is an advocate for black people? Because one, I definitely assume that if we were in slavery times again, that he would definitely own slaves. Two, I don't listen to what he says. I watch what he does. I haven't seen him do anything to address any type of systemic bias or systemic injustices.
Okay, well, hold that point. Okay. All right. We're going to deal with reality. We're here right now. We're not in slavery time. So Donald Trump is here right now. All right. The First Step Act, when he signed that into law, that was beneficial to African Americans mostly and primarily. Over 93% of those who are coming out of prison are black men. Over 93%. That's good. Okay. Now, secondly, the fight against illegal immigration into this country is most beneficial to African Americans. Okay. All right. In Mississippi, when over 800 illegal aliens working at those plants in Mississippi were arrested and working there illegally, it was mostly and mainly black people who got those jobs after these people were arrested, and they were paid for it. Okay. Yeah. You also have with Trump, when Trump did the executive order for historically black colleges and universities, that was beneficial for mostly black people, mostly with HBCUs. So I can go on and list and talk about some other things that Trump is actually doing that is beneficial for African Americans. And when someone says to me, and they have the power of the White House, and they say to me, come on, African Americans, come on to the table. Come on. You got something to gain. What do you have to lose? Come on, let's talk. When someone says that to me, I'm going to go to that table, and if nothing else, I'm going to call their bluff. Okay, but instead, what did you have? The rank and file among African Americans, the rank and file, most of the rank and file, they refuse to do that. Okay, so what are they doing? They are not doing the bidding of you and of me. They're doing their own political bidding of their political ideological party. That's what they're doing. So So that's why I produced the African Americans National Political Agenda, so that there's clarity as to who we are, what we stand for, what we demand, and what we see as a debt to us, okay? So anytime someone, once again, say to me, come to the table. Well, hey, I'm at the table now. This is what I want. You can either say yes or you can say no. But if you never go to the doggone table, okay, that's the problem. Okay, that is the problem. So they have frightened African Americans across this country. If you talk to Donald, we will tar you. We will disown you. You are persona non grata. If you dare talk to Donald Trump. It was because Martin Luther King Jr. dared. And Martin Luther King Jr. was a Republican. He dared to sit down and discuss with a Democrat in the White House progress for Africans, that the Civil Rights Bill of 1954 became law with black women who had children, and some of them did not know where the next meal was going to come from. These black women were very, very happy about that. And they looked over and past political lines to accomplish that. And that's what I'm asking African Americans to do today, is to look beyond the emotionalism that mainstream media is always trying to hype you all into. Look beyond that. Look for your.
So I'll say I can definitely agree with that. I think there's a strong need for critical thinking, for being able to see beyond, like, the two-party system. It's still two groups of white people fighting for white people. So I agree that being able to talk about what we're looking for. As we're wrapping up, I want to say that, and even ask, like, without the Hispanic population, without the influx of immigrants, legal or illegal, what do you think would have been different? Because the experience that Blacks have always had in this country and in this culture, where we have this race-based system, has been to be denied any livable economic conditions at every turn and opportunity. So while on the one hand, I can see where the idea that we need to address illegal immigration is a thing, I can also see that take that out of the equation and the system and the white people who control that system are still not going to give opportunities to Black people.
Well, you don't look for white people to give. Some white people are willing to do the right thing. Some of them are not, and some of them never will be willing to do the right thing. But some of them are willing and ready to do the right thing, okay? Now, that's the opposition for those who are not willing to do the right thing. That's your opposition. But for the opposition, we push against that. We continue to push against that. What is the old saying? If you get knocked down, what do? You get back up. Okay? You get back up. All right. Now, you never get anything without being knocked down, anything of importance if you're Black in America, without getting knocked down at some point. King got knocked down. A number of other Blacks, they got knocked down, but they got back up. You get right back up and you keep pushing until you get what you came to get, what you're demanding to get. What is yours? Okay? The reparations is yours. All right. There are various reasons why you deserve reparations. And the fact that Donald Trump mentioned the word reparations, the fact that Mitch McConnell mentioned it, the fact that others are mentioning the word reparations, that is a sign of progress. Now, the case for reparations. The case for reparations is the Black and white wealth gap. That is the biggest case for reparations. That is the information that's out there. Okay. Joe Biden You look at his adverse words about reparations. He doesn't support reparations. Same thing with Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders have a hard time referring to African Americans, so he lumped them in as people of color. And then also you have the seeding of reparations at the national and at the local levels, okay, where you have universities and religious institutions who are now putting together reparations packages, okay? All right, so we have to have it at every level, at the highest level down to the lowest level. So we're pushing, promoting that.
So I think I'm getting the picture. So regardless of, so the illegal immigration conversation, the Hispanic conversation, is less about them, more about us needing to focus on ourselves, needing to gather and unify with a plan in what we're asking for. That being said, as you're talking about reparations, can you spend the next minute or so just breaking down what reparations looks like for Black people in America?
Well, as I said, the justification for it is the black-white wealth gap in America. All right, and y'all see that on your screen. You see it. That's what it is. That's what it's been for generations in America. That's the case for it. Now you have the chattel slavery, and then you have the ugly sisters of chattel slavery, the Jim Crow, the sharecropping, the redlining, and all other different forms of discrimination. You have the affirmative action, which they piled on and let everybody come into affirmative action. White women and other people, they all came in on that. So it was a farce. Okay, so that was not reparations. So when Mitch McConnell says that's your reparations, oh no. Barack Obama was your reparations, oh no. That was not your reparations. So, but seeding reparations at all levels. Okay, marijuana is not, dispensaries is not your reparations. Okay, so Black people, don't be stupid. Okay, that's not your reparations. Okay, so Trump seizing the reparations initiative. Our goal is for him to seize upon the reparations in an executive order for 2020 before the November elections. That is what our goal ought to be. Now, the Democrats, they have a goal too. They're in Atlanta. They're pushing a 2022 plan. And that 2022 plan incorporates reparations. They're talking about reparations, but they should be talking about reparations right now. They should be pushing it right now, not tomorrow, not 2022. So also the cyclical programs and process hold as beneficial for Blacks, while the wealth gap continues to expand between Black and white in America. So what do I mean by the cyclical programs? I mean, okay, every president who comes into office, you know, you're going to look at unemployment and everything. Unemployment will drop or go up, okay? Black unemployment, white unemployment. You see all of that. You hear of other programs such as the enterprise zones, the opportunity zones, all these things, which in many cases, it pushes and promotes gentrification in many areas of the country. Now, there are exceptions, but we have to look at the exceptions, okay? But for the most part, none of these programs moved collectively, overall, moved Black people forward. None of them. Okay, so if none of them did that, and none of them did, then you have to look at something that actually triggered and caused that huge wealth gap to develop between Black and white in America in the first place, which was the huge land grant acts, the huge homesteading acts. Okay, when they started talking about General Sherman and all started talking about 40 acres and a mule and all the whole bit, when you start talking about the Freedmen's Bank, Freedman Bank, and all, when you start talking about all of those things, those are areas that African Americans that were for African Americans specifically. Even the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment had nothing to do with anchor babies. 14th Amendment only had to do with two things. It had to do with former slave owners, and it had to do with children born of enslaved Black women and men. That's all. It mentions immigration nowhere in there. Okay, it was only in the 1960s that those ACLU lawyers, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg people, changed that. In order, they didn't change the 14th Amendment. They just changed the public misunderstanding of it to mean, okay, this is anchor baby stuff too. Okay, when in fact it never was. It was never intended for that. But they used what was for us, and I'm talking about illegal immigrants now. They used what was for us to advance themselves at your expense. Okay? As I said, EMC square. Something in that direction creates opposite force in that direction. If you're losing, if you're dropping, if you're going down on the wealth scale, then somebody else is getting that wealth. Okay? And that's what's happening. Either white folks are getting it, or other illegal immigrants or immigrant groups who are coming into the country are getting that. So we have to wake up. We have to demand what is ours. We cannot any longer sit back, make excuses, all right, and get all emotional about things without thinking. Okay? Use your emotionalism to improve your intellectualism. Okay?
All right. 21-point agenda. And I know Shay all day has some great questions. And we're going to let you...
I'm still trying to figure out what reparations, like, what are we asking for?
Okay. All right. What are we asking for? You're asking for
wealth. That's what you're asking for. The greatest source of wealth is land. It's property. It's ownership. Okay? When you have money, you can buy land. Or land can even be deeded to you by the government. You have federal land, millions of acres of federal land all around the United States. Okay? You got land that the federal government can deed to you. You even have some state land. Because it wasn't just the federal government who participated in slavery. It was from the top all the way down to the bottom. And it wasn't just slavery. It's everything that came after slavery also, even to this present day. Okay? How do you know? How do we know? We know because we're looking at the doggone numbers. Who was incarcerated? Who had the highest numbers in this, in diseases, etc. Medical apartheid. Okay? All right, medical procedures carried out against black people in America to further the wealth of white people, the benefits of white people and other people in America. All right, so when we talk about reparations, we're talking about value. We're talking about wealth. We're talking about, that's why I have that chart up there. You're looking at that. See that green? That green is white folk. Okay? That's what the green is. That red is black folk. All right? So we have to change that. The only way that you're going to change that, you're not going to change that through enterprise zones, opportunity zones, affirmative action, or any of those things. You've already tried all those things for decades. You're not going to change it. You're not going to change it through that. No, it'll help a few individuals, and the wealth gap will continue to grow. Okay? That wealth gap includes Oprah Winfrey's in there with the black folks, all Bill Cosby, every wealthy person, all the basketball players, football players, everybody's in there. All of them. Okay, but still, it's like a drop in the bucket compared to white people in America. All right. But it didn't get there just by happenstance. It wasn't magical that white people acquired this great wealth. In fact, African Americans have been here in this country longer than most white groups in America. They've been here longer, especially longer than the white female, because the white female did not initially come over here. It was the men who came first. All right. So we have to look at these things. We have to think of these things intellectually and not emotionally. Okay? So we have to react in that way.
All right, check this. Crumb from Crumb TV, the person who has this great platform, one of which we're sharing, says only nations get reparations. Black is not a nationality. How do you address these type of comments?
That's not true. That is not true. The Japanese in America, Japanese Americans were not nations. They were not a nation here in America. They were not. No, I know where he's going with that. That's not true. Okay? It's totally not true. That's not accurate. You can, as a people, as a group of people, what was done to you was done to you as a group of people. Okay? And a nation is a group. Okay? All right? So, I mean, we can parse words and the whole bit and everything, but you are a group of people upon which this was perpetrated upon you, against you. Okay? So as a group, you come back with a redress to get the reparations that you're owed. All right.
You know what? I've often heard, if blacks got reparations, they would go spend it at the Lexus dealer the next morning. And Crumb also put up a statement about folks think that reparations is going to work like food stamps. Any comment to those type of comments? Because those come all the time. Those come all the time when we talk about reparations.
Yeah. Well, no. That's inaccurate. Most black people are good stewards with money. Okay. most black people are. Black folk down through the ages here in America, black folks have taken far less than what other groups of people have. Money, white people have. They've taken that and they've been able to stretch it far. Now, you also have some black folks they'll just waste it. They'll waste money. You've got that. You always have people like that. You got white people like that. You got Asian people like that. They'll waste it. They'll blow it. Okay. They blow it. There's no welfare for them after that. Okay. They waste it. It's on them. Okay. All right. Let's stop making excuses. Okay. Let's stop making excuses. I am not one. I live here on my homestead, on my property here. Okay. All right. I am not one who's going to just waste money, throw away money. I build. I'm a builder. And most black people are that way. So let's stop playing into those stereotypes, okay? Because most black people are just like me. Just like me. Mainstream people will show you the idiots. They will project the idiots out there.
The 21-point agenda, your 21-point agenda, then I want to fall back and let Shay come back with the heat. But talk about your 21-point agenda. I actually have it up on the screen right now.
Okay, all right. Is there any particular point in there that you want to start with, or would you like for me to just jump into it?
Jump on in, bro. It's a nice river. Jump on in.
Okay, all right. Well, the first part of the agenda is item number one. Item number one on the African Americans National Political Agenda says that a government study, and y'all know this is already there, okay, but a government study on the adverse effect today of slavery, Jim Crow, and discrimination against African Americans, adverse effect on establishment and accumulation of generational wealth, and the monetary value to beneficiaries of slavery, Jim Crow, and other forms of discrimination. That's item number one, okay? So that's talking about reparations. So item number two, reparations is owed and must be rendered to African American descendants of those enslaved beginning approximately in 1619 in primarily British, French, and Spanish colony territories and what would become the United States of America. Because we know that in 1619, that United States was not yet a nation. It did not become a nation until a long time after that. What was that? 1776. Okay? So the British. So if you're talking about reparations, you got the British right there. You also have the French right there. You also have the Spanish. All right. Item number three. To move reparations bill, H.R. 40, into discussion from the committee to a full vote on the floor, the House floor.
Isn't H.R. 40 trash? That's what I keep hearing. The H.R. 40 is pretty much trash.
Well, H.R. 40 is really nothing. It's not trash. It's really nothing because it's just it's less than one page. Okay, it is about doing a study. Okay, okay, that's okay. What. So it's not totally trash. Okay, but it is something that we should push out of that committee. Okay, it should not be in the committee. It should be on the House floor. All right, but it's a starting point. Okay, it's not zero, so it's not totally trash. No, it's not that. You can use that, as I said earlier. Black folks could take something that's not much and really turn something into it, and really make something out of it. And we can
number four
with this if you got the right people working with it. All right. So item number five, hard work. Well, no, item number four, to produce a U.S. Senate bill equivalent to H.R. 40 in the House. Now, I had written this agenda before Senator Cory Booker and another senator actually went out there and they produced a Senate bill. Okay? So they've done that. Item number four, they've done that in the Senate. And maybe, just maybe, I haven't seen the Senate bill, but I would like to see it. I'm going to try to see if I can get a hold to it. Maybe we should push it, depending on what the Senate bill looks like. If it looks better than what's in the House, maybe you should push it from the Senate level, and that will help also move it at the House level. Okay? So that's an alternative. So we have to think about that. Item number five, hard work and free labor should be valued and rewarded, whether it started in 1619 or today. Okay? You heard Jim Clyburn say that unemployment for blacks were lower during slavery than it is right now. Okay? And Jim Clyburn was dead wrong. Chattel slavery was not employment. You don't call that employment. You did not fill out a W-4 form. That was slavery. Okay? That was inhumane. If the United States can cape, the government can cape for the Armenians with regards to Turkey, then by God, the greatest citizens of America, the most loyal citizens of America, then you ought to be able to cape for African Americans who built the great wealth of this country, from the agricultural revolution, and then transferred that wealth into the industrial revolution, and then transferred that wealth into the computer technology revolution. Okay? So all of that was started by us, by our ancestors in the United States of America, and even before it was the United States. So, item 6, all citizens of the United States must have the right to vote, and that right must be protected. That's item number 6. We believe in this. Item number 7, prison reform must include the right for ex-felons who have served their sentences the right to vote in all states, not just some states. In other words, this must be federal law. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Item number 8. The Constitution of the United States must be upheld. Okay? Now, the Constitution of the United States, had the white man obeyed the Constitution of the United States, there would have never been slavery, because the Constitution starts out that all men are created equally, right? Well, then you would have never enslaved black men. All right? So you had to try to create something to go around your own Constitution, which you didn't come up with in the first place. The Iroquois, you borrowed from the Iroquois Constitution to create the U.S. Constitution. All right? So, but you wouldn't have had slavery had they only been true to the words on the paper. And as the Native Americans say, you know, they lie. They lie. Great genius. All right. Fork tongue. Okay. So, item number 9. Federal laws of the United States must be upheld. In other words, you cannot have these state laws overruling federal laws. These sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, where you have a fifth rail, other foreigners who come in and they create and they bring in their own laws and ordinances to suit their needs at the state and city and municipal levels. So we can't have that. So, and item number 11, the core of families are male, female, and children. Now, I've never seen a family that was produced with Pete Buttigieg and his husband.
Wow. Now, does that point muddy the waters when we're trying to get as many of us behind it as much?
Well, no, it's saying what we stand for. You know, if you look, the traditions of Africa, if you look all across the continent of Africa, the only exception being mainly South Africa, all right, and the white folks, they really did a head job on blacks in South Africa, okay, during apartheid. All across Africa, Africa rejects that type of behavior, okay, and we are children of that continent, and even right here in this country, Africans reject that in a majority. And I'm going to point out a point here. Notice that Pete Buttigieg in South Carolina, African-American voters says, no. You're a nice guy, but we're not going to vote for you because we don't buy this Tom and Bill thing. We don't go along with that. All right. Now I know I step on some toes of people. That's okay. I don't care. Okay. I'm just calling it what it is. Okay. All right. So
all right. I think the one that I've highlighted, number 14, is the one I really want you to expound on. And then we're going to go back to Shay All Day, who has a question. Okay. Hit number 14. Is that number 14 I have highlighted? Yes, 14.
Social and welfare. Okay, so item number 14. Social and welfare programs must be a means to self-sufficiency, not a lifestyle. What that means is, what it means is this. You have people who get on welfare, they get on government programs, they're able-bodied people, they have their mental wits about themselves, but they refuse to work. They just want to perpetually be on welfare programs. Now, this is white folks, black folks, Asian folks, Hispanics. That's what they do. Okay? We're against that. We're against that. We don't stand for anything like that. People who cannot work, there should be a social net for them. But people who are able-bodied persons, they ought to work. They ought to take care of themselves. We should not have any freeloaders. Okay? All right.
Interesting. So, look, where can people find your 21-point agenda? And then I'm going to turn it right over to Shay.
All right. Well, out there on my channel, on the Afrisynergy News channel, you can find that 21-point agenda because in most programs, I post that 21-point agenda right out there in the comment section, and you can cut and paste it and share it, print it out, share it with other people wherever you are. And also in Facebook, also. YouTube and Facebook, you'll see it.
Yeah, you sent me an emailed copy of it, and I truly appreciate that, good brother. Queen Shay All Day, Queen Shay All Day. I fall back and let you take over.
I have 3 things, and then I'll be done for the night. The first thing is when you say descendants of slavery, I already anticipate how do you prove that you're a descendant of slavery? That's one thing. 2, Marlon Christian in the comments said something that I agree with, which is, can you really see Trump doing this in an executive order? And he said he can't see it without a civil war. I'm not going to say I don't see it without a civil war. I'm going to say I don't see it without some significant changes in our upbringing and our culture, enculturation in America. And the third thing is, I'm not hearing anything that acknowledges the trauma that African Americans are still experiencing. So when you talk about being able to work, being able-bodied, I think to not address mental stress, mental distress, mental incapacitation is folly. To not address that and the fact that education and some type of support need to go with reparations.
Okay. You got hundreds of thousands, probably actually several millions. You have several millions across this country who actually get what some people call the crazy check. Okay. They're getting that. Okay. So that's not an issue. Okay. They're getting that. You got people who do not have any mental conditions, but they don't want to work. They won't work. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Those people must work. Those people must not freeload. Yes, you have post-traumatic slave syndrome. You have all of that. Okay. You have that with some people. You do. You have some people who are faking. Okay. And professionals are the ones who evaluate those situations. So that has to be taken on a case-by-case basis. But as I said, you have some we know should not be freeloading on the system. That's American citizens. That's also some of the illegal aliens who are coming in here into the country. They come here and then they become a public charge. In other words, they get on the welfare system. They get in HUD housing. And they're not even citizens. And HUD housing for them is illegal. But they've been able to get it in the past. So, excuse me. So that is how I would address that particular area right there. Yes, you have the post-traumatic slave syndrome, but we have to seriously look at where that is, because you have some people who are just faking and they want a free ride. You've got that. All right. And we have to realize that. You have people with mental conditions. You have to make exceptions for that. All right. But those are not the type of people I'm talking about. All right. So what was the second and third part of your question, Shay?
So the second and third part was when you talk about reparations for descendants of slavery, how do you prove that you're a descendant of slavery? And also the idea that this is something that Trump would do in an executive order it's super far-fetched to me. Marlon Christian brought it up.
Got it. I got it.
How would that move?
All right. Well, an executive order for reparations is not far-fetched. It's not far-fetched at all. Several decades ago, they thought an executive order and then legislation for reparations to what white people at that time, they were hating on the Japanese, calling them Japs and squinty eyes and all that. They thought that was impossible. They're our enemy. Never, no reparations to these Japs. Okay, that was a term that the white folks were using. But reparations was given. It happened. Okay. And even in spite of the fact that you had some people in America say, oh no, over my dead body. But they had no say in it, because those things are decided at the high level of government. When the government make those decisions, it's made. Okay? So the decision was made. And I think that started under and with Ronald Reagan, with the Japanese. All right. So the other question, so it's not far-fetched, okay? You have not because you ask not. Because you ask not. If you cannot believe, then you cannot achieve. If you cannot dream it, you cannot see it, okay? If you don't have the vision, then you're not going to see it, okay? So you have to look beyond the I can't to the I can. That's what you have to look at. So that's my message on that. You know, there were people who told Martin Luther King Jr., you will never get what you're looking for. They will never sign that civil rights bill, Martin. They will never do it. But King kept on pressing. Got beaten up, thrown in jail, but he kept pressing until he got it. He got the job done. All right? You will always have naysayers. Always. They will always be out there as naysayers. But you will always have, more importantly, the workers, the believers who are out there working to make it happen. So we have to do that. Somebody had the idea that we're going to put it in Donald Trump's ear. For black people, for the historically black colleges and universities, we want an executive order. You had a naysayer who said, no, that will never happen. Donald Trump is a racist. He will never do that. You had others who said, oh, Alice Johnson, oh, black woman, release her from prison. Donald Trump, oh, that will never happen. Donald Trump, he's a racist. He's a bigot. Remember the Central Park Five? He'll never do it. And tomorrow I'll have on my program Clinton Stewart, black man, out of Colorado, pardoned by Trump. Okay? All right. I'll have him on the program. But the naysayers you will always have with you. They will always be here. But the believers and the ones who are believers and the workers, they work to make the naysayers. Okay? Just that, naysayers. Because they work to make it happen. That must be our goal and objective. All right. Now that third part, the last part of that question was, ask that question again so the users will hear it.
So the last part was, when we're talking about giving reparations to descendants of slavery, most Black Americans We don't have that record keeping, that ability to trace even back to slavery, much less to our original ancestors.
Yeah. Okay. Well, today, actually, most blacks can trace their ancestry back now. It's just a matter of them knowing the sources and knowing where to go. Ancestry.com. There are other places where you can go also and start tracing these things. And also the U.S. government. Okay, most people probably don't know this. The U.S. government have a lot more of those records because those slave owners, because you as a commodity was valuable to the slave owners, they have records of all that, tax records, because they got tax write-offs. If they lost a slave, they could get insurance for that. Okay, even after slavery ended, slave owners got more than $240 per slave head that they lost. So they have records of this. The U.S. government have records of these things. Religious organizations have records. Mormons, they got records. Universities, they've got records. They're out there, okay? It's just a matter of people starting to talk and starting to look, okay, and ask questions. You will find these answers. They're there. So we know, most of the overwhelming majority of black folks who are in the United States, okay? And you didn't come here on the boat recently or on a plane from Jamaica or from England or from somewhere in Africa or wherever else in the world. You didn't come here recently at all. You know that, and look, you're a descendant of those who came here on slave ships. You know that. And not all blacks even came here on slave ships. Before slavery was 1619. Before 1619, you had blacks who had came over here on the ships with the Europeans, and they were free, not slaves. Some of them even came as indentured servants with white indentured servants. But it was only in 1619, after 1619, where they started changing the laws. So it's, no, we can't enslave white people. It has to be blacks. Okay? Well, not everybody, a few small minority of blacks might, when you start doing the research, you might discover, well, hey, look, my ancestors were not enslaved. But that's very, very, very small number. Very small.
Yeah, we saw that with Ava DuVernay. She did some research on, I can't think of the brothers, maybe I can't think of it, Skippy Gates show. And it showed that her ancestors came from different areas, and so they didn't go through that enslavement period, but they did go through the Jim Crow process. So I know that FBA, Foundation Black Americans, and ADOS are both using the designations of your lineage not lineage, because we're the lineage. Your ancestors went through enslavement here in the United States of America, and they suffered and had rights taken away from them and demeaned during the Jim Crow era as the people who would be recipients of reparations. What are your thoughts on that? Because to me, I hear you saying we simply need to get the order pushed with the person who can push the order, the president.
Right.
And you've also said that the numbers, the money, that part is not relevant at this stage of the game.
Right.
So is the definition of who should get reparations, is that important at this stage of the game?
No, it's not. It's not important at this stage of the game. Okay, it's not. As you start going through what you have to go through first, all of that will come in its time. All of it. Another measurement also, when you start looking at poverty numbers, if you were a descendant of slavery, when you start looking at certain poverty numbers in families, you can also guess who were and who were not. Okay?
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Those who came through the slavery part of it, those blacks, they will probably have less money, less property. Okay. There are exceptions, of course. Okay. All right. But for the most part, the rule is that they're going to have less in number. Okay. You're going to have others who didn't come through chattel slavery. They may have came here from, even though Jamaica has slavery, it was different, but it was the same in many respects too.
Well, Jamaica owes them reparations.
Well, Britain owes.
Britain.
Okay. Well, France didn't play a big role right there, but it was a little role. But definitely a big role in Haiti for France.
Absolutely. So, France owes them reparations.
Yeah. So you could have people who came from somewhere else. Maybe they came here from London by ship in 1890. Okay. They came here by ship, and they weren't rich, but they weren't bad off either. And they settled in a free state where slavery was not allowed. Okay. And all of their children today, you may notice, they're excelling in a number of areas, in reading, math, science, the STEM programs. You might notice all of that. Okay. So you have a little bit of that, but those are exceptions. Okay. Not the rule. Because, even if you came here free, way back in, let's say it was 1850. You came here free. If you so happen to end up in the wrong state, you might be enslaved. Okay? So looking at things realistically like that, but I say again, and I emphasize this, the U.S. government and state governments have lots of this information on file because slavery was a big time money business. It was huge. At points, you have some of your ancestors who might be sold for $2,000. Way back then, early 1800s or 1700s, $2,000. That's a lot of money. Way back then.
Interesting. Brother, we're going to start closing down for the night. Ooh, this was mind-blowing. Queen Shay All Day, we're going to let you say your movement, your tags, where people can find you. And then Brother T. West, I want you to share where people can find you. And then we're going to close off. And this is something we're definitely going to have to revisit. Definitely because, one, T. West has gobs of information. So, Shay, what say you? What's your movement? Where can people find you?
All right, you can find me all over the socials. 360 Citizens. Our website is 360citizens.org, and our movement is to build community and to put equity back in the community. But we start with literacy, so we do reading intervention, but we also look for ways to close those wealth gaps that Brother T. West is talking about.
Okay. All right, Shay, thank you. And again, I am T. West with Afrisynergy News. You can find me on YouTube under Afrisynergy News. You can also find me on Facebook under Afrisynergy News. You can find me on Twitter under the handle WESTTHEA. And that's where you can find me at. I was looking at some of your comments out here too from some of these individuals. Some of very good comments from some. They need a little help. But okay, good. Thank you for the program.
One of the brothers, Akeem the Great, said that you're probably the FBI, CIA. And the other one I thought was interesting is that slave ship stuff don't make sense. Intriguing.
Our series on that, debunking that myth, that black folks were already here. They did not come over here on slave ships and all that kind of nonsense. Black folks need to embrace who they are, okay? They need to stop the self-hate. We're the Native Americans. No, you're not. You're not the Native Americans. You have some dark-skinned Native Americans, but most of their hair texture was not like your hair texture. And none of you speak any of the native languages of this land. None of you. And in any place where people have been enslaved, check this out. Any place where people have been enslaved in their own land, you will always find some of them who know how to speak their native language. anywhere in the world. In Africa, you had slavery there too, along with colonialism. But in Africa, the people, you always find people who know how to speak their native languages. Right here in the United States of America, you cannot name any notable. Name one notable African American who speak the Choctaw language, who speak the Apache language, the Cherokee language, the Iroquois language. Name one. I don't know of any of them who speak any of those languages.
All right, so that's definitely another stream we're going to have to do. So you've been listening to the Fly Guy Show, the home of intelligent, melanated conversations to improve our situation. I'm your man, Seko Varner, at Seko Varner, at Grandpa Crunk. We had Shay, Queen Shay all day at 360 Citizens. And we were honored to have Brother T. West from Afrisynergy. Oh, people are going in now, bro. The comments are going in now.
I see it.
Keep that same energy. We're going to bring Brother T. West back at another time to continue. But until then, you guys stay fly. Stay fly. Stay fly. Wow, man, they're going in. They're going in.
Stay fly, 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 stay fly.
The views expressed by the guests are only the views of the guests, unless we say we agree. Unless explicitly stated.
Stay fly, stay fly, stay fly, stay fly, stay fly.